All right, welcome back to News Gang, and as we promised, we are now going to Sagana, and
but before you go to Sagana, let me first take you back to South.
Why did I expect that?
let me take you back to Mugirango. Sylvan Sosoro, the member of parliament in that bout with Arati, says in a text.
Sorry.
Yeah, the sitting MP.
He's a sitting MP.
Yes. Yeah.
We have no doubt about that anymore.
Yeah. Well, he says in a text, that was an unfortunate circumstance from my colleague and I. We already apologized to the family and Kenyans and Kenyans at large, and committed not to have the incident recurring again. I mean, we are human and can err. A single incident shouldn't be used to brand us dishonorable. We have several positivities too. Honorable Osoro.
Okay.
That sounds like a very nice. Sorry, Basi.
Yeah, it is true. I wish they would actually appear, address a press conference together, and say those things that he's saying. It would actually go a long way in beginning to repair the damage. But that's.
And speaking of Moses Kuria, who talked about wanting to lead the process of self-regulation, he says surely he has a PhD on these cases. So let's take him seriously. 2014, hate speech acquitted. 2015, incitement acquitted. 2016, incitement acquitted. 2017, hate speech acquitted. He says, surely I have a PhD on these cases, so take me seriously. He also goes on to say, hate speech is immoral, not unlawful.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like what was happening at that funeral, strictly speaking, it ought not to be a legal thing. I mean, everybody growing up, there ought to be some few people who make you understand that, you know, you don't just do those kinds of things in front of all manner of people, and worst of all, at a funeral. Right. That really is just, it's basic.
Wow, interesting.
All right, now we can finally go to Sagana, I hope.
Oh, yes.
Yes, the bumpy road to Sagana, probably. But anyway, this time the president actually went, and interesting things happened. And what better person than Francis Gashuri, who was there himself to kickstart this conversation. Francis, quite a number of days. Were they 4? Were they 5?
They were 4.
4 days, yes. Your overall take?
Well, summons to the mountain, or the central question, so to say. The president calling members of parliament, senators, opinion leaders and religious leaders, business community, to have a dialogue about BBI and a few other pertinent issues relating to the mountain, particularly the question of succession next year. And it was a response to what we have seen in the last few months, maybe about a year or two since handshake, because the mountain has been restless and the question of succession has been pertinent. And so the president, I listened to all the speeches that he made in Sagana, right from the one that he made to the MCAs on Friday, the Saturday meeting with the leaders, the Sunday meeting with the young people, the Monday tours where he was launching the last mile connectivities in Kiani constituency. And the main issue was that the president was asking the region to separate BBI from the 2022 succession politics. And of course, acknowledging that there have been issues, there have been problems, but trying to explain to the region why there are certain benefits in the document that are good for the region. The question of representation, the question of equitable sharing of national resources. Remember that mantra before the Meru BBI meeting of 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling? The president trying to explain to the people what is contained in that document in response to that mantra of 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. The question is, did the president manage to deal with the dissent in the Mount Kenya region? I wouldn't say 100%. To some extent, there are some people he probably converted from their previous positions to his new position. There are still a few others who still hold on to their positions. And the question of succession, being tied to the whole business of BBI, very, very pertinent. And looks like the president in his promise that in those 4 days that he will continue making such tours to the Mount Kenya region to explain to people what they stand to gain. Looks like it will be the way to go for him to try and explain to the people what they stand to gain. But at the end of it all, I also left in my mind with this view that for the president and the deputy, the fallout is total. That the president even referred to his deputy, not directly, but any listener, keen listener would tell where the discussion was heading. Talking about the question of debt, that sina deni ya mtu, I only have a debt with the people. And more pertinently, the question of succession and the promises that his deputy has been making to the Mount Kenya region, even equating it to a dowry, that here is the president even equating the Mount Kenya region to a bride, that this is somebody, of course in reference to his deputy, who is trying to woo a bride through the kitchen door and the bedroom window. Analogies that are very, very, very heavy from that side of the mountain.
And it hit him quite hard in very many ways. I mean, I think for the first time, perhaps not the first, but I think this was really a frontal attack. He wasn't, going sideways. I think that what you say about the fallout being near total is quite accurate. Linus, what is going on in the mountain from what you saw the president do, and what must now happen if he is to regain, if he has lost ground, as many people say, that part of the country?
In my view, Joe, everything is playing out exactly as we had discussed in the last show just before the Sagana meeting, because the problem of Central Kenya is two-pronged. One is BBI, and the second one is succession. And those two issues are actually clashing right now. And on the two issues, President Uhuru Kenyatta has been at the center, or the center of focus of the community, asking, what are you doing? What are you doing? What is this BBI about? Is it about Raila? And look at the length of time it took to just address the issue of BBI. Then now he went to the greater problem, which is the disquiet in Central Kenya about the development record there, and two, the entry of the Deputy President William Ruto in the backyard of the president. Now, we had argued, and we still argue about it here, Joe, that look, there is a way the Central Kenya politics works. It's thoroughly consultative. It is hierarchical. It's top-down, not bottom-up. And this is the approach the president has taken. Overnight, the letter we had here last week, the
41 MPs.
The 41 MPs suddenly is not news at all, just because Sagana happened. Where did the 41 go to? What happened? Did anything in this content, very, very strongly worded document, change? The thing is, what has happened is the politics of the region is being shaped in the way it's normally done. It's not through letters, not through rallies, through a certain hierarchical consultative process that respects seniority in politics. And there is one thing that cannot be changed as a fact. Uhuru Kenyatta remains the senior-most politician in Central Kenya. That's fact number one. Fact number two, unlike when Mwai Kibaki was leaving office, Central Kenya doesn't have an obvious regional kingpin right now. What does that mean? It means Uhuru Kenyatta, who actually in terms of age is still in his 50s, is still pretty young, can still wield some enormous influence before and after his presidency. And he has let that cat out of the bag quite a number of times, saying, I'm not going anywhere. By what does he mean by that? That laughter, we know we're all Africans, we know what, that laughter is normally a sentence. There's something it means. Like, what the hell are you saying? Don't dismiss me. And Sagana was a big fight back by the president. He mobilized numbers. Although Francis, we were disputing the numbers. Is it 4,500? Is it 7,000 that attended Sagana? But just look at the sheer ability, whether it's through state resources or otherwise, to mobilize that region once like that and reduce the 11-page to no news at all over 4 days. That's quite big. I think it means that Uhuru Kenyatta is determined not just to influence the direction of the region in BBI and succession, but also in the life after.
And maybe one of the issues about his succession will be about his development record, which is, what he was doing in Sagana in central Kenya over the 4-day period, touting the development, achievements, and something that he also did. We saw cabinet secretaries who had been mandated to go out and, start to tell the stories, a little better of some of the successes that they've done together with the Presidential Delivery Unit. And I guess that's one of the issues that we'll see more from the president, trying to go out there and say, I'm not a lame duck. I'm still somebody to count on because this is what I have done, and whoever will come after me will have, this sort of foundation of development to build on. But then I see that sort of hand in hand then with the blame game over the failures of the Jubilee administration. And we've seen this between, ODM leader Raila Odinga and the deputy president. An interesting debate. Can both run away from the failures? You see the deputy president saying that all was well between 2013 and 2018 when the handshake happened and he came in and derailed it. If we were to take that argument, for instance, and say that everything was hunky-dory in the Jubilee administration for 5 years, then what about until the handshake? So what about some issues like the stadia? What about the digital literacy program that we saw, mutating and evolving or whatever from one laptop per child, then it became a whole digital literacy program. What about the Galana Kulalu, promise that was made? What about the 1 million jobs a year? If that promise had been fulfilled, that would have been 5 million jobs. Would there be an issue about disenfranchisement of the young people? Those 5 million people are significant in an economy where, if you take a look at the KRA statistics, there's what? No more than 3 million people who are salaried and therefore paying payee. That would be an additional 3 million people who would be getting deductions via payee because they have jobs. So what about all of those promises? If you take a look at Raila himself on the other end, can he run away from some of the failures? When he himself endorsed government projects, he was on a billboard for Huduma number, urging people to go in. I mean, isn't there a point at which towards the end of this, both of them will have to take responsibility for the successes and failures of this? So that I find to be an interesting debate about the failures of that. Everybody saying...
But isn't it just, I think, testament to the really strange waters we are in, Francis, when 1.5 years to the, 1.5 now it is, 18 months, right? 1.5 years to an election, you actually have the deputy president and the main opposition leader actually arguing about who is most responsible about the failures of the sitting government. That it doesn't get stranger than that.
Absolutely. And explains to you the dynamics that the handshake in March 2018 brought to the Jubilee administration. What it did, first of all, it kind of gave a new face to the opposition as we know it. Because now, look at even the committees in the National Assembly and in the Senate. You find some committees even being chaired by what you would call opposition members of parliament. Because that line between the opposition and government of the day has thinned out, so to say. But secondly, the succession arithmetic in Jubilee totally changed as a result of the handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga. Even as late as today, during that interview with our colleagues from Inoro FM and Inoro TV, when the ODM leader was asked whether he will be vying for the presidency next year, he said that decision he will make once the BBI is passed, and that we should ask him that question once the BBI is passed. So if the answer was yes or no, the answer would have been outright. But the fact that he told us that that question will be responded to after the handshake, after the BBI is passed, tells you something. But more fundamentally, it is important to look at the Mount Kenya region in one context. From 1992 to 2017, the region has not found itself where it is currently. 1992, it had Matiba. 1997, it had Kibaki. 2002, it had Kibaki. 2007, it had Kibaki. 2013, Uhuru Kenyatta. 2017, Uhuru Kenyatta. If you asked who is the outright front runner from the region for the presidency next year, you would have a problem responding to that question. And so that unrest, so to say, gives you a new dimension politically in the region. But more fundamentally, at the tail end of the Saturday meeting, Governor Kiraitu Murungi of Meru read the declaration for the meeting, what they call the Sagana 3 declaration. And it was in 3 points. And he read it in Kikuyu, though he spoke in Kimeru. But, I mean, the Kikuyu and Meru, they understand each other so very well. The first statement was that, number 1, support for BBI. Number 2, Uhuru Kenyatta remains the leader of the Mount Kenya region. Number 3, that Uhuru Kenyatta will guide the region in next year's succession politics. Actually, it was 3 sentences. And every question was, the question was put the way you see it in Parliament. As many as of the opinions say something of the sort. Lastly, President Uhuru Kenyatta gave an analogy that I found very complex. That next year's race, in the event the region does not have a presidential candidate, will be equated to a hunting session where we will identify who to hunt with, but while hunting, once the prey is on the table, a discussion must be made about how much of that animal that has been caught will be shared and how it will be shared. He gave the example of the ribs, one leg, the head, the kidneys, and so on and so forth. Telling you what? That there's a realization that there's a vote basket here. In the event that it doesn't go to any one particular person from the region like it has gone previously, if it will go to another person, then that person must be subjected to a discussion, pre-election discussion, as to how resources will be shared and positions will be shared and so on and so forth. But will the region go that route? Will it be guided democracy in terms of the succession, or the people themselves will make a decision and a determination where they go? That is the clash of opinion.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we can end this show. I know there are many things that we should be discussing, but we can't end this show without talking about the face of the No campaign, as it were, that was unveiled this week in the name of Linda Katiba. I will start with you, Linus. So we have mainly civil society faces that we've known for a while, with some politicians who disagreed with this. Essentially, we know that there are people like Martha Karua, like Professor Kibwana, who have literally asked the country to reject the BBI in total. Linda Katiba, where do you see them in the bigger scheme of things, seeing how political this entire BBI thing already is?
It's going to be very interesting. They have, first of all, come out for the first time in a very structured way to say, no, we oppose these changes. We oppose the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 in total. And one of the things that they have stated very eloquently is to compare what BBI is offering with what the 2010 Constitution offered. And we have them arguing that, look, BBI takes away what the 2010 Constitution gave. Number 2, they've been very strong on one argument, that this administration and this president has failed to implement the Constitution of Kenya 2010. They are making very strong legal arguments. And for those who are really interested in constitutionalism, this is going to be an appealing voice going forward, because they are very specific on what they think is going to go wrong. They are very, very elaborate on how they explain, on how they're explaining it. And I think we do have some of the sound bites. If we can just listen to, I think, Martha Karua. Yeah.
Reject BBI and the cannibalization of our dreams, collective dreams as Kenyans, embodied in the Constitution. Wakenya tulinde katiba. Asanteni.
Yeah, let's protect the constitution. Look at what they're saying. They're saying there is an assault coming up. This is an assault on the Constitution of Kenya 2010. One of the arguments, again, that one of the proponents of Linda Katiba was saying is, look, it's not founded in any constitutional spirit. Where is the constitutional moment? What is inspiring these changes? Why are we introducing office of Prime Minister? Is that what Kenyans are asking? Where is the constitutional moment? So they're asking very pertinent questions that will be very, very interesting to see how the BBI side will answer that and respond not just in manner of dismissing, but in manner of giving a substantive response to the specific questions that have been raised.
Yet Yvonne, the success or otherwise of this will depend on whether in fact the decision on BBI will be made entirely, if at all, on the content of the document. Because I think what we've seen in this country, even when it comes to the 2010 Constitution, I do not think that half of those 67 plus or so percent that voted in favor of this thing really knew what it had in store. It usually kind of follows the traditional political fault lines that we've seen in the country. And right now, I think for me, what Linda Katiba has to contend with is how to decouple themselves from the deputy president and his brigade, because whereas the deputy president and the Tanga movement has not clearly come out to say they will oppose the document. They have been throwing barbs at it and dismissing various clauses here and there, but they haven't come out to say we are the face of the no campaign. There's a sense in which people are likely to conflate the two groups and say this is just another expression of what the deputy president has been saying. And I think there have been attempts, propaganda attempts, I would say, at linking Linda Katiba and the deputy president. And that's going to be a big thing going forward, Yvonne. I don't know what you see.
Yeah, on the issue of conflating them with the deputy president, I think that is a habit that Kenyans have. If you agree with BBI, then you are in Uhuru and Raila's camp. If you disagree with it, you're in Ruto's. We have this dichotomy that, you know, is very sad in this country, to be honest. I don't know who funds Linda Katiba. I don't know if indeed they are working with the deputy president or not. I'm not sure whether there's a need for them to continue to publicly try to decouple themselves from the deputy president, other than to just continue to say what it is they believe in. For what it's worth, whether it makes an impact or not, what I like about the Linda Katiba movement is the fact that we're now starting to have debate on the issues and the content of it. Whatever that leads to, they will go down in the annals of history as having introduced some form of debate on the contents of the BBI, as opposed to what it has been turned into, which is 2022, which is whether Raila will be on the ballot against Deputy President William Ruto. And Hasla versus dynasty narrative. And I think that is interesting for me going forward. And so, I mean, that was even evident on Newsnight here with Wahiga Mora, when we had Daisy Amdanyi from the Linda Katiba movement and Professor Ben Sihanya, who we know was a very key architect.
Very interesting in the
and it was an interesting debate about the issues. It got heated at some point, granted, but they were discussing the issues, the merits and demerits of, you know, specific issues, chapters and ideas that have been brought up in there. And, you know, whether it amounts to anything, whether we follow our usual ethnic lines, political lines, whether we say so-and-so amesoma, mesema ni sawa au la, I think whichever way, this can only be, you know, a good thing going forward.
There's a good reason why Yvonne and I are desk mates. Because what I was just about to say is exactly what you've said. You see, this is where it ought to have begun. Yeah. Regardless of the outcome, the discussion ought to be about the content. So what are the merits and demerits of the proposed changes in the 2010 Constitution? And how do they sit in with improving our governance, improving our value system, improving issues of representation, sharing of national resources, and many other issues, improving devolution and so on and so forth. That is where the discussion ought to have been. Unfortunately, there are many people who today will tell you they support the BBI process, but if you ask them what they support in that document, they can't tell you. There are also a good number of people who say they oppose, they reject the document. But if you ask them what in that document do you reject, They will tell you something about it is being used to fight Ruto in 2022, it's being used to help Raila in 2022. There are those who support and they will give you other reasons. So very few people are giving you concrete reasons based on the content. And even if probably you were to publish 1,000,001 copies, those who don't want to read will not read. Those who will want to support because politician A has said let's support, and those who want to oppose because politician B has said let's oppose, they will still maintain their positions, the content notwithstanding. But I think what Linda Katiba have done is to elevate the discussion to content as opposed to partisan conflict. And then also the fundamental question, mutilation versus improvement. Are we mutilating the constitution or are we improving it? That is now a good place to have a discussion. But unfortunately, or fortunately, the discussion is on. Siaya County Assembly has already approved the bill. Kisumu County, Busia, Vihiga, Kilifi are already on public participation stage. So that explains to you which kind of a marathon you're going to see this month. ODM leader Raila Odinga today in an interview said by the end of this month they hope that 24 county assemblies will have approved.
And that's all they need, right?
Yep.
That's all they need. And whatever happens in the National Assembly and the Senate is immaterial. Yeah. So the next point of contact with the proposals will be at the referendum, if the document passes. Questions also emerge on whether people are actually doing concrete public participation or whether it's a formality. Kaikai, you can tell us what actually is public participation.
No, I'm sure that
how
will take a whole,
much is enough.
That will take a whole show.
I'll tell you public participation when I see it, and I haven't seen any.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, you saw what the Siaya County Assembly did. It very quickly processed that. And that's in line with the point I think Yvonne and yourself have made here about the way it's seen. If Baba has read it, why bother? You know, just pass it.
And it is a reason why you have seen Linda Katiba literally going out of its way to kind of try and distance themselves from what the Deputy President and his team have been saying, even though they actually seem to agree on very critical aspects in that document. But yes, I mean, that's the nature of our politics. But ladies and gentlemen, I keep saying ladies, Jamila in absentia. Before we end this show, I think it would be great for us to talk about